Parshas Bahar, Ve'edaber Hashem al Moshe Bahar Sinai Lemor. So the famous Rashi says, Ma'inyan Shmita Etzel Har Sinai. So there were two guys learning, and one of them says, hey, even Rashi had this expression. The idea is that what does Shmita got to do with Har Sinai? Like Kol mitzvahs nemer b'Sinai weren't all the mitzvahs said by Har Sinai. Elamash Shmita nemer klal lesehav dikdukem Sinai. Just like the Hilchos Shmita, all the klalim and the pratim were said by Sinai. Av kula nemer klal lesehav dikdukem b'Sinai. Kach shlu b'teres kana. As they state in Teres Kana, but nearly shekach perushal fishla mitin shmitas karkosh and ishbavris moyav. We don't find the Indian of shmitas karkosh that was repeated by Arvis Moyav in Mishnah Torah. Mishnah Torah and Sefer Dvarim repeats most of the mitzvahs that were taught previously in the earlier Svarim or Chumash, but we don't find shmitas karkosh that was repeated in Mishnah Torah. So Zok Rashi lomadnu sheklal leisehu pratesehu kula nemer b'Sinai. We learn over here, that's why all the klalim and the pratim were said by Sinai, that Ubaha Kosav, and the Pasuk is coming to teach us, V'limed kan al kol dibur shenedaber l'Moshe shem Sinai hu kulam klaliseyan v'dikdukem v'chosav v'nishnu b'Arvis Moyav. And all the klalim and the pratim and the dikdukim were repeated in Arvis Moyav as well. I mean, just like all the rest of the Torah was, so too this was also. Just an interesting ha'ara, something that we talk about all the time, that we find that there's Rabbi and Rav Yosef. There's two types of Talmidei Chacham in the Bismedrash. There's the Sinai and there's the Oker Harim. Rav Yosef, the Yamoira, he was always referred to as the Sinai. The Sinai, he knew all the brises, he knew all the Mishnayos, all the Amorim had to know all the Mishnayos, but he was fluent in all the brises. More than that, it's interesting that he also knew all the Targums as well. We a lot of times find in the Gemara, Kedem Targum Rav Yosef, Kedem Targum Rav Yosef. Stam is interesting. Shmuz, if you look in Baba Kamad of Dalar on base, it says because he was a Sagi Nahar, he wasn't able to see. He had to learn the Targum because Varam Shebik Sabi after Ashilam Ralpad, these type of shmuzin. But the Svar the Gemara says in Brachas on the Samach Dalar is that Rav Yosef is called the Sinai. So Gemara Brachas on the Samach Dalar at the end of Harius that Hakol Tzrich L'Marich Hitaya. Everyone needs wheat. So everybody needs the Sinai because he knows where everything is. So the joke that they say is that the Oker Harim needs the Sinai also because he doesn't know where he himself is. He needs to rely on the Sinai to find himself. Because the Sinai is the Baki, he knows where everything is. And it's very interesting because we find that the Lashon HaGemaras in Ksubis and Daf Beis and elsewhere that Rav Yosef would use an expression Morei D'Avram, God of Abraham, so to speak. And what's the pshat in this Lashon that he's saying? And why is that Tal in Rav Yosef, when the Gemara refers to him as Sinai? So it's a davar pashat that the Indian of Avram Avinu was that he wanted that Shem Hashem should be known through him, and he wanted that Shem Hashem should be known throughout the world. And the Ikra Avodah of Avram Avinu was the mid of Chesed to be mekarev people to Avinu Shebashamayim, and when he was a very young child, he realized that there's got to be somebody that's in charge of this world. And we know from the Gemara site on Daf Yud that he would give people to eat, and the Gemara Yom Daf Choches he would teach people Torah. And the Chazon Sefer writes that Avram Avinu was Torah Shebiksav, and Yitzchak was Torah Shebapel on the way to the Akedah. And there's arichas on that. The Masber that this is the first time we find that there was something that HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke to a Navi, and then the Navi gave it over to somebody else. So that giving over to somebody else would be Nichlal and Torah Shebapel. It's very fascinating that we find the Medrash that says that Peshas Matan Torah Halach Har HaMeria Etzel Har Sinai V'Kadosh Baruch Hu Nasan HaTorah Olav. That Peshas Matan Torah Har HaMeria went to Har Sinai and was makabel the Torah over there. That Har HaMeria and Har Sinai both got together because Har HaMeria is a place where Avraham Avinu did the Akedas Yitzchak, and he went together with Har HaMeria. And that's the Spitz case of Morei D'Avram. He took the Torah and the Avodah, took the Torah of Har Sinai and took the Akedah and the Nevuah of Avram Avinu of Har HaMeria and put it together. And that's Morei D'Avram. Interesting, I'm just realizing now that Morei is the same Oisius as Maria. And L'chera, that's what's interesting over here also, that's the Madreg of Sinai. The Sinai is the Torah B'Klaliyusa. And that's the Baki who knows every area of Torah. So just like just like a Bucky knows every area of Torah and wants to know every area of Torah, Avraham Avinu wanted that every Yid should be able to recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Every person should recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's the pshat why he's called Sinai. Right in the parsha we have that, 1 second. Weiter we have pasuk vav, voice Shabbos haaretz lechem laachla lecha labdecha v'lamasech l'schircha l'seshavcha gor mimach. That the Shabbos haaretz should be for you to eat, for you, for your servant, and for the amma, the avodim and the shvachs, l'schircha l'seshavcha. So Rashi says that l'schircha l'seshavcha is even the goyim. Pirish Rashi af hagoyim. And the understanding of this is that you can't say that it's talking about an Eved Ivri because you already said lavdecha. Right, and a sachir is the eved that's kana kinyan shonim, and taishav is kinyan elam. Right, that's why we always say that. So, and the Gemara Yavamis says that hakvar ksiv lavdechol lamasacha that shehim evriyim. So we already mentioned that. So the pasuk is coming to teach us that even though the year is called Kodesh, so and you would think that goyim wouldn't be able to eat from Perish Shvius, the pasuk says l'schirchol seishalcha, meaning that even goyim can come and eat from the Perish Shvius. L'cheretz madna, because the Isurim of Shvius are the same as the Isurim Shabbos. The Melech Shabbos that you're not allowed to do in the field, you're not allowed to do during Shmita either. And the pasuk refers to Shabbosa, refers to Shmita Shabbosa, and Vaysa Shabbos Haaretz Lechem La'achla. So it's very madna because we know that halacha is a goy Shabbos Chayiv Misa, a guy that doesn't do malacha on Shabbos Chayiv Misa. But it's interesting. We hear he's just eating the Perish of Shvius. It's not necessarily if it's the same as like if a guy eats cholent, right? I mean, we know the medrash that says that Antonin has asked Rebbe, what's in here that's so good? So he says it's Shabbos. He says Tavan Echad Yeshlan Shabbos Shema. We put that in. It's not a shreif. It's not a kasha from that. But al kopanim, it's clear over here that it's mutter for the goyim to eat from Perish Shvius. L'choira, Rashi is quoting from the Teres Kahanim, but now there are other nuschos in the Teres Kahanim. That doesn't say af hagoyim, but it says af hagerim. But in the main nuschos of Teres Kahanim, it says goyim, and gerim are b'chlal Yisrael. So then why should it be any different? The problem is that we run into an issue because there's a Tosefta in Shvius, Perek Hei Halacha Yodaled, that says ma'achilin es achsanya perish Shvius, ve'ein ma'achilin lo yas hanachri v'lo yas hasachir perish Shvius. There's a clear brayso that says that you're allowed to feed a guest perish Shvius, but you're not allowed to feed a goy or a sachir perish Shvius. V'im hoyos sachir Shabbos, if he was a sachir for a specific time, or you set aside how much you're going to pay him, so then you're allowed to feed him perish Shvius. So it's mavur in the brayso that it's also to feed a goy perish Shvius. So you have to say that what the Teres Kahanim says that it's mutter for the goyim to eat it is when they're davka, sachir, and taishav, when you're mechuyev to give them a zaynus. But if I'm not mechuyev in their zaynus, then it's also to give them. L'cheretz mavur in the Rambam also. Like that. The makar the issa l'chera to feed to a goy is learned out in Teres Kahanim where it says lechem la'achla. And lechem means davka for Klal Yisrael, not for others. Lechem v'loy la'acherim. And the Rash in Teres Kahanim learns that it's lechem v'loy l'nachri. The Radvaz in Shmiita Perek Hei Halacha Gimel writes that shaloi belvad she'en ma'achilin ha'isam elav moinen es hagoyim elakachas perish Shvius b'nei kedushasam. Because it's kedusha Shvius, we do not allow the goyim to come into the fields to eat from the Perish Shvius. And the Chazon Ish is mechiach from this Tosefta. The Chazon Ish brings a right from this Tosefta that the fact that you're allowed to feed the Achsanya Shvius, that there's no Isser, that the Iker Isser of feeding the goy is only with the Rabbanon, and the Rabbanon were matir the Achsanya, because if it would be Isser, then you wouldn't be allowed, then there shouldn't be any makom to be matir the Achsanya to eat. And the pasuk is darshaning, and the pasuk that's gedarshan in Teres Kahanim is only an asmachta because there's no svara to be mechalik to be matir and achsanya b'sa Torah. Just because you have an achsanya, it doesn't mean you can feed him b'sa b'chalav. So what's the pshat? Elamai, the pshat is that it's only din rabbanan, and for achsanya they were mekel. But the Mari Kurkis on the Rambam writes like this: that the aside of the iser of feeding the goy is because the Paris is there's going to be a hefset of Perish Shvius. And the Torah says la'achla, and by giving it to the goyim, there's going to be chisaron in the la'achla. But an achsanya, he's not a goy. So when you're giving it to him, even though it may not be in the proper kedusha shvius 100%, but he's not losing out. He's like one of the people in his house. And the Radvaz also learns like this. And the Mikdash David has arichas, and he explains that the being ger mehefsid of perish is also aser. And when you're giving it to a guy, you're ger mehefsid, because maybe he's going to eat the pears in a way that's going to be shalaikadin, or he's not going to eat them properly, and it's going to be a hefsid. But the Marikorkas and the Radvaz say that the etzem fact of giving it to a guy is a hefsid, because he's not going to be mekayim the mitzvah of la'achla. But l'chayra, you could say that according to them, they don't hold that a gram hefsid is going to be aser. Fine. Well, l'chayra is interesting. And the way I was thinking of it is there's one thing, if you're feeding it to a guy, if a guy is coming to take it. If it's hefker, so then, let's say I'm mafker my couch. Is there anything that's stopping a guy from taking it? Is there any reason why I shouldn't allow a guy to take it? Now you have to know, is that the gather of hefker that's in the perish shvius or not? Now, there's also a shmuz, I'm not going to get into it, but there's also a shmuz about the field of a guy. Does that have, in Eretz Yisrael, does that have kedusha shvius or not? L'maisa it says, Lechem v'lo l'nachrim, so l'cheret is makom to say that there's no makom for them to have any kedusha shvius. So, if they don't have a Shabbos ha'oretz, then there's no kedusha shvius in their Paris. But the Chazon Ish says very interesting that the Medayik, because it says they don't have the Shabbos ha'oretz. The Chazon Ish says no, that the pasuk's not talking about who owns the oretz, but who has a mitzvah in the oretz. Who cares about who has the Paris, but who has the mitzvah of the Paris on the ground, which is obviously the Yidden. So, without any really decisive answer over here, Al-Kapanim, we have that, that's the shmuz over here. Pasuk Yud, V'kidashtem eshnas hachamishim shona, ukrosem duror ba'oretz l'chol yeshvei yovel hi, tia lechem shaftem ishal lechuzosoy, v'ishal mishpachtei teshuvu, the couple of hours over here. V'kidashtem, Rashi says, B'chnisosam mekatchen leiseh bebezdin v'ayrim mekudeshes hashana, as the year comes in, Bezdin gets together and they make an announcement, and they say that this year is going to be Mekudesh B'Kedushas Yovel. Interesting, the Balaturim says Durar. The word Durar is Gematria 410. It's a remez to the minion of the Durar Shonim, that they were Dururim Ba'oretz B'Shanivin Habayis, that they were free, that they were living in a certain freedom because they had the Beis HaMikdash with them. Ukrasem Durar Ba'oretz Achal Yeshua Yovel Hi. There's a Sefer Torah Shalom, which brings Givaldi Gezachin, Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Said, whatever you want over there. It's packed Sefer. So he says that Eretz L'chol Yeshvei Yovel Hi is the Rosh Tevis Eliyahu. Aleph is Eretz, Lamed is L'chol, Yud is Yeshveha, Yovel, and the Hey is He. So you have Eretz L'chol Yeshveha Yovel Hi. There's no Vav there, but okay, I guess the Vav from Yovel. We'll take it that way. And the Hu Yovel Yeshveha, Sefer Tevis is also Elyo. So Durar, he says, is also Gematria Mashiach Eliyahu, because that's going to be the Yovel Hagadol Chiros Olam, and that's the Pshat in the Sefer Tevis of Shaftim Ishal Chuzos Yashalom, because Eliyahu is going to come last Shalom Ba'olam v'yishteit in the Mishnah. Very interesting. He brings it in the Hagoy Shiloh Mor and Even Ezer Simon Kuf Chav Tes in the Sugi of Shemus Begitten. He says that, I'm just going to quote it, Ki Omer Hagoy Reb Shalom Shachna She'Hashem Shachna Meramez L'Shchina L'Shmoy Shal Mashiach. So that's the name Shalom Shachna. So Shalom has to do with Mashiach. That Ein Eliyahu Ba Le'Lerachik Le'Lekarva Le'Lasa Shalom Ba'olam. That and weiter state that there's the Parsha of Einah that's next to the Parsha of Yovel, because if a person keeps Yovel properly, then he's not going to have any need to do Einah. Because when a person thinks that safe, I'm going to end up getting my field back, and I'm going to end up having all the money that I need, and he has B'tachin HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and doesn't need to go anywhere, so then everything is going to work out for him, so it shouldn't be an issue. So he's not going to need to be jealous of anybody, he's not going to need to work for anybody like that, he's not going to need to steal and do any Einah. And the idea is that the mitzvah of Yovel and the B'tachin that Yovel is teaching us to be Mashra Shalom Ba'olam, Because Ravid and Machleksin come from Dinei Mamanis, it's a Davar Pashut Azay. Fine. And also we could say that Gemara says in Hedron Daf Tzadei Ches that there's Be'ita and then there's Achishena. So if it's going to be Be'ita, then we're not going to need to suffer from Chevle Mashiach. But Achishena, then we're going to have to suffer from Chevle Mashiach. Durar is Gematria Chevle Mashiach, it's Chachara, the Hepech, but it's Hainu Hach. Because the Durar is the freedom, the Chevle Mashiach is going to lead to that freedom that Mashiach is going to bring to us. That even according to the Gemara, I mean, even on the most basic level, like the Gemara says that, you know, if we get that, that's also pretty good. So when Yovel comes, it's going to be Be'ita, so then it's going to be Kross and Dror, so then we're going to be Nitzel from Chevle Mashiach. Okay. Fine. It's coming to be marba, even the person who's the nirtzas, he's staying by his adam he was the evet, and he's staying by his adam for longer because he was nirtzas, then he goes back to his family. So Gemara Kedusha on Daf Chav Aleph Amud Beis says, we learn from here that Eina Evet Kayin Nirtzam Ibnei Shenas Bal Mum, that an Evet who's a Kayin doesn't get Ritzia, we don't make a hole in his ear because he becomes Bal Mum, and the pasuk says V'shavel Mishpachtoi, and L'muchzik Shavel Mishpachtoi, he has to be muchzik in his mishpachas. If you're going to make him a mum, he's not going to be muchzik in the kahuna in a certain sense. So Rabbi Chanan and Kavit Shurim and Kuf Chavtes asks, since he's not royal Ritzia, because he's going to become a Bal Mum, then he shouldn't be Nichlal in the Mechira. Meaning that there's almost an understanding in the Mechira Se'eved that you're not going to be able to do Ritzia, so then you can't sell him. You shouldn't be able to sell him. And he answers that the Shema Yeshlema, the Dafka Hanach Mili, the Isnu Ba'isa Mechira Ma'akvi. The Dafka, the things that are Nichlal in this Mechira Ma'akvi. But Ritzia is a chelik in the is a different kind of Mechira. Why? Because we have a Mishnah that says that Hanirtza is Nikna B'Ritzia. So the Ritzia is a separate kinyan that the other gets after the Eved, this person wants to be an Eved and wants to stay for longer. He's not Mechuyev, meaning when he gets the Eved originally, it's not the kinyan of Ritzia. So Avada, when he's even we're talking about a kain over here, but Avada, the point is that even when he sold originally as an Eved, it's not a problem because the Ritzia only happens after he wants to stay. The Ritzia happens after 6 years, and that's like a new kinyan, so it's not ma'akiv in the Mechira. That's what Rabbi Chana wants to say. And Rabbi Shlomo Fisher wants to say like this: Yiyud, Giron Kesef, and Yovel. That's the ratzon of the way the Torah wanted it to be. So I mean, like that's like there's a kosev, like kacha. So when it's not shayach to be miskayim, so then l'chari we would say that the mechira should be batal. But by the Ritzia, there's a ratzon in the Torah that he should go out. I mean, how does it work? The halacha is like this: an Eved can't work for more than 6 years. After 6 years, he's got to go home. Now, if he doesn't want to go home, he wants to stay. So then he could do Ritzia. That Ritzia, we said, Rabbi Chanan is learning that it's going to make it like it's a new kinyan. And the Ritzia is an einish from the fact that he doesn't want to leave. So if he doesn't want to leave and he wants to go ahead with this kind of an einish, so then ein tzarich sheyehei roy lakach. He doesn't need to be roy for the mechira. So I think in the lamdas of it because it's a new mechira. Okay. Fine. So I want to share another quick vart. It's a famous vart. They say it over B'Shem everybody, but I think this is the Iker Makar of the vart. Pasuk Yud Tes says, "V'nasna aretz pirya v'chaltem l'seiv v'vishavtem levetach aleha." So what's meint das? Es meint das so. So steht, "V'nasna aretz pirya." The earth is going to produce its fruits. V'chaltem l'seiva. There's going to be a bracha. Rashi said there's going to be a bracha on the bnei me'ayim, and like we find by the lechem apanim, v'vishavtem levetach aleha. It's like Rashi, you're not going to have to be worried about a Shnas Abatzeres. Everything is going to work out well. Why? What are the two things? L'chayra, the pasuk's mentioning two things. That there's V'nasna Aretz Pir V'chaltem L'Seiva. Then there's another thing, V'shavtem Levetach Aleha. You're not going to have to be worried about Shnas Abatzeres. And meaning, it sounds like it's a bracha specific to Eretz Yisrael, but also Aretz Periya, El-Cher and Chutz Aretz, they could also eat L'Seiva, saying they don't have the mitzvah to least Ba'aretz, the same way they have in Eretz Yisrael, but Cher, it's interesting. Makom for an Ha'ara. So the Panyafis brings from his uncle, Hagoin Reb Yaakov Halevi Migluga, that the Gemara getting on Daf Ayin says, Shekol HaMamale Kreise V'Koyes Hareyu Mestakin. Somebody who eats and fills himself up and gets angry, it puts himself in a sakana. And this is what the Gemara says. Omale Eliyahu Reb Nasan. Eliyahu Hanavi said to Reb Nasan, Achol shlish, eat a third, or say shlish, and drink a third, V'hanach shlish, and leave your stomach empty a third, L'cheshetich tamid amiluecha. So when you're angry, when you get angry, you'll be able to, tamid amiluecha, you'll be able to, because you're not all the way full, you'll be able to work that way. Rashi says, Malay me'echa shlish, you should fill up a third, or say shlish, V'hanach shlish bin charekam, and leave a third empty, you'll be able to calm down, I guess, or protect yourself in a certain sense, because you're not all the way full. But if you fill yourself up with achil and shtiya, when you get angry, you'll plot. So because it is chashash, a person is not able to eat full, because maybe after he eats, he's going to get angry, and then he could put himself in a sakana. We could say, he says that l'cher we could say that this is dafka in chutz aretz and galus, because the pasuk says v'nasan Hashem l'chol leiv ragos, but in Eretz Yisrael there's no chashash, you're going to get angry. He brings the Gemara a fascinating story. Ula b'miskei la'ardi Yisrael islava trained b'nei chuzay. When Ula was traveling to Eretz Yisrael, he was going together with two people from Chuzah. Come chad shachta l'chavre, and one got up and shechted another one. So Ula, when he comes to Eretz Yisrael, Ula meets Rabbi Yechanan, and he tells him what happened on the way. So Ula asked Rabbi Yechanan, maybe he was nichshal and that he was mechazik the ritzeach, because he said, did he do the right thing? And Ula told him yes. So Rabbi Yechanan told him that there's no chashash over here, because he was sakonas lefash. If you would have told him anything, he may have killed you. So Rabbi Yechanan thought that this vice already happened in Eretz Yisrael. So after Rabbi Yechanan was like wondering, like it says v'nasan Hashem l'chol leiv ragos, that's in Bavel, because in Bavel that's where a person would have the regas, a person would have the kas, but a person's in Eretz Yisrael, he wouldn't have the kas. So Ula tells him no, that by the b'shas the Ritzicha, they weren't over the Yarden yet, they were still in Chutz La'aretz. So in Eretz Yisrael, a person's able to eat as much as he wants, a little soiva, and he doesn't have to be chayshish, that maybe he'll get angry and it'll affect his stomach, I guess, if you will. So that's the pshat v'nas na'aretz priva chadum l'seiva, because dafka in Eretz Yisrael is shaykh this bracha, and I'm in Chutz La'aretz. And that's why also a person has to say because Hamazim al Eretz Yisrael. It says v'chal t'savad v'rech shem l'kach l'eretz t'tev shenasan lach. Because b'schus Eretz Yisrael, the person is able to eat b'sviyah, because in Chutz La'aretz a person has to be chayshish for this Gemara that his shema, maybe his kreisay misbakas. Now, the is very interesting, because what's the oimik over here? What's the understanding over here? So without getting into too much of the arichos, Maral says in Kama places that where there's more kedusha, there's more of a chance of kas where there's more kedusha. As the Gemara says in Tainus that and a young Talmid Chacham was getting angry. It's the Torah that's blowing up inside of him. But if you look at Maral in Nesiv HaTorah and Perkid Gimel, he's marach over there that there's a difference between Talmidei Chachamim when they're being Isaac with Torah and Talmidei Chachamim when they're amongst other people in Eretz Yisrael and in Chutz La'aretz. He brings the Gemara in Hedron. It's Arichos in the Maral, but he brings the Gemara in Hedron and says that the Anhaga of the Talmidei Chachamim in Eretz Yisrael was different than the Anhaga of the Talmidei Chachamim in Bavel, because the Talmidei Chachamim Eretz Yisrael sheman imen zeh lezeh b'halacha. They were very pleasant with each other in halacha, and Talmud Yerushalmi. The Maral speaks this out. He doesn't say Talmud Yerushalmi, but he says that the Talmud Bavli is a lot of pilpul, because they were asking more, because they were more like irritated and more upset about what the other people were saying. It led to the machshaka ma'yishivani k'meisi eilim the Talmud Shabava, because they're saying the Yasveh B'Ared Cheshaycha, it brings out much more pilpul, because this one's asking keneged the other one, mamela, it comes out more like that. And the Gemara Nedarim on the same Amud over there says that Amalei Chatu Yisrael, they would have gotten just, if the Klal Yisrael wouldn't have been Chayte, so they would have gotten just Chamisha Chumshei Torah and Sefer Yeshua. Because why Dafka Sefer Yeshua? Because it's Erech Shel Eretz Yisrael. And what does that mean? Because the Pashut Pshat is because that's where everybody got their Chelik in Eretz Yisrael. That's where the Torah shows us where everyone's getting their Chelik in Eretz Yisrael. And the Gemara says the reason is because Berav Chachma Rav Kas. Because the more, meaning we ended up with more Sifrei Tanakh, so to speak, because of more Chataim, the more Teichachas that the Nevi'im had to give to Klal Yisrael, and that's why. So the Chachma came about because of the Chataim and the Kas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu on Klal Yisrael. We were Zoich in a sense to a lot more from the Sifrei Nevi'im. So I thought that was just an interesting part. Okay, Ad Kan.